Saitama's serious table flip has turned the world of One Punch Man on its head. More people know about Saitama's strength than ever before. Most of them just think he's strong and have no idea that he is the strongest. But Zombie Man knows better. In fact, his plan right now is to gain Saitama's strength for himself. And to do that, he has turned to his creator, the former leader of the House of Evolution, Dr. Genos. Saitama humbled the once evil doctor in his organization really early on in the series. Dr. Genos was obsessed with the artificial evolution of the human species. After seeing that Saitama could defeat Mosquito Girl at full power with only a single hit, Dr. Genos became very invested in the guy. He sent the elite strike team he planned to destroy humanity with to Z City and expected them to capture the bald man. That way, he'd be able to investigate the hero's physiology and apply it to his research. But that is not how things went. They were easily defeated. When Saitama and Genos invaded their secret base, Dr. Genos released his most dangerous and clearly unstable test subject at the time, Carnage Kabuto. Thanks to this, he was able to see Saitama's power firsthand, and it was more than enough for the doctor to turn his entire life around immediately. Zombie Man, meanwhile, had been hunting the House of Evolution longer than anyone else, since he himself was created by Dr. Genos, but ultimately escaped and became a hero. But by the time he found his mark, Dr. Genos was using his research in physical regeneration to make infinite octopus tentacles. The House of Evolution had already become the House of Takoyaki. At first, Zombie Man could not believe it. He was going to kill Dr. Genos then and there to stop him and his research from endangering humanity. But Dr. Genos explained that after seeing Saitama, he realized that his research could never compare. Dr. Genos is easily one of the smartest characters in One Punch Man. And when it comes to the study of biology, no one else comes close. So he might just be the smartest character we have ever seen evaluate Saitama's power. He is also the only character besides Genos that knows what Saitama did before becoming as strong as he is. Saitama was totally serious when he admitted that his power development was thanks to doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every day. Genos and Carnage Kabuto immediately chalked this up to being nonsense and a blatant lie thanks to how simple it was. But despite being surprised, Dr. Genos was the only person in the room who didn't react like that. Based on his first-hand evaluation of the hero, Dr. Genos concluded and expressed to Zombie Man that Saitama had successfully removed his limiter. Zombie Man didn't understand what the doctor meant at first, but the concept wasn't too difficult to grasp. All living things have limits to their growth. They improve within predetermined parameters that allow for survival and the preservation of reason. Too much strength can become a hindrance that leads to undesirable complications. And apparently, the built-in mechanism for controlling this growth is known as a limiter. When he first heard this, Zombie Man didn't really believe Dr. Genos and was actually pretty disappointed to see his creator be this cowardly. The mere thought of Saitama's power was enough to make Dr. Genos tremble with fear. But after seeing Saitama take down Monster Garou with a single punch, Zombie Man had a complete change of heart. Sometime after the raid on the Monster Association, Zombie Man returned to the House of Takoyaki. He spoke to Dr. Genos and confirmed that everything his creator said was correct. And with all that in mind, he desperately desired to become like Saitama himself. More specifically, he wanted Dr. Genos to help remove his limiter too. The potential of this on its own is pretty insane. Zombie Man's claim to fame is his ability to endlessly regenerate no matter how much damage he suffers. Besides that, he's pretty mundane. He's not especially powerful and is physically outmatched by pretty much every other S-class hero. It took him more than 30 minutes to beat Vampire Pureblood, who was only a disaster-level demon, not a disaster-level dragon like the strongest members of the Monster Association. And after winning, Zombie Man admitted that Pureblood was the strongest monster he had fought in a while. In terms of damage, he's really just a guy with an axe and some guns. But if he could manage to remove his limiter, he would be beyond terrifying to face. Now, when Zombie Man asked Dr. Genos to do this for him, the scientist responded by saying that the restaurant actually has a basement. And down there was something interesting he wanted to show the hero. Which is very Aaron's dad of him. I mean, we already have Saitama with time travel, so maybe we're not far off. So, what's in the basement? There are so many crazy possibilities. And one of the craziest ones may have been teased by something the doctor said before Zombie Man showed up. Somehow, Mosquito Girl managed to survive being hit by Saitama. The entire fandom assumed she was dead, but now she's selling takoyaki. After returning to her creator, it seems like he was able to develop some prosthetic arms and legs for her. This is interesting because despite Armored Gorilla being a thing, Dr. Genos isn't Metal Knight or Child Emperor. Sorry, Wild Emperor. He's no slouch when it comes to robotics, but he's even better with biology. So why wouldn't he just create new organic limbs for her? Well, despite her jollier ways, after being made fun of by some kids, Mosquito Girl immediately started raging. To stop her from going crazy, Gorilla had to feed her from behind with a syringe full of blood. We see what you did there, Murata. After that, Gorilla told Dr. Genos to hurry up and regenerate a new blood sac for Mosquito Girl to avoid her going on hangry rampages. But Dr. Genos refused for now. Apparently, the incubation tank was occupied at the moment. That's pretty huge. We were led to believe that Dr. Genos had completely given up on his ambitions after seeing Saitama, but it seems like that might not be the case after all. So at the very least, there is an incubation tank in the basement. Well, what's in the tank? The answer to that might be even crazier. Remember, Dr. Genos originally wanted to use Saitama as a test subject. He planned to use the hero for the sake of getting closer to his dream of evolution beyond humanity. But Saitama turned out to be so much more than he could have ever imagined. What if instead of just convincing Dr. Genos to abandon his goal, Saitama became his goal? Mosquito Girl actually being alive should be more than enough of a reason to reconsider a bunch of assumptions we used to have. Back when Dr. Genos first realized how powerful Saitama truly is, he decided that he was done with his experiments and wanted to change himself instead. Really, that could mean a lot of things. We all assumed he had completely given up, but that might not be true. Actually, this decision was a reflection of Saitama's teachings. Back then, Kate Baldy told the mad scientist that if he was messing with a new form of humanity and evolution, he would never make it. According to him, human strength lies in the ability to change yourself. With that being the case, Zombie Man pretty much said the magic words here. His desire to change himself aligns with Dr. Genos' newfound philosophy and goals. Dr. Genos has access to some of the most dangerous technology in the series. First, he restored his own youth, going from an old man to a young one. Imagine if Bang got that treatment. He'd be able to train Garou in his physical prime. Or what about Blast? He'd be able to take the fight against God to a whole new level. Dr. Genos also created experiment number 66, Zombie Man, who has infinite regeneration. So even though Zombie Man escaped before he could replicate the breakthrough, Dr. Genos was able to access immortality with his research. Besides that, he may not have used it offensively, but the guy also has access to cloning. He cloned himself dozens of times, and from what we can tell, they were all perfect duplicates. So what's stopping him from doing the same to someone like Saitama? Has Dr. Genos been developing a Saitama clone? First of all, Dr. Genos failed to secure Saitama for his experiments. That seems to be a bit of a necessity for what he originally had in mind, at least. The thing about Saitama's strength is that as shrouded in mystery as it may be, not enough people have actually investigated it for us to say that it is actually that difficult to figure out. How do we know for sure that it can't be explained, even if only partially, by something as simple as a DNA sample? The bigger issue would be getting a sample from Saitama in the first place. You would be hard-pressed to draw any blood from the guy. There's also the fact that on account of him being bald, a hair sample would be too difficult to get a hold of. Then again, maybe Mosquito Girl can be the solution to the blood issue. Strangely enough, despite his strength, Saitama really struggled to kill a common mosquito. Not only that, but it even managed to bite him successfully. Even if it was only a bug bite, something actually managed to pierce Saitama's flesh and draw blood, which is pretty impressive. Saitama has taken a bath in molten lava. He destroyed Jupiter, the biggest planet in the solar system, with just a sneeze, and then propelled himself from there to Earth with only a fart. On average, the distance between the gas giants and our planet is 444 million miles. So with crazy feats like that, it's no wonder fans have been scratching their heads over that mosquito bite for years. To deal with Genos, Mosquito Girl called upon every mosquito within over 30 miles of herself. And this of course included the mosquito that had been bullying Saitama. It's a long shot, but Mosquito Girl's survival could also mean that the blood sample made it out too. Regardless, if Dr. Genos really is still conducting experiments, it's hard to imagine they wouldn't be related to Saitama at all. It's more likely that they do, clone or otherwise. Even just a breakthrough related to how Saitama may have gained his powers would be huge. Back when Saitama was actively training to become a hero, and before he lost his hair, he experienced some strange stinging pain and was even throwing up blood. And not the gang. Word of advice: if your home workout makes you puke blood, go see a doctor. Maybe avoid the one Zombie Man goes to. Saitama had never worked out like this before, so he thought it was normal and thought nothing of it. Not even Genos knows this about him. He still thinks Saitama is just keeping the truth of his strength to himself. Dr. Genos is definitely afraid of how powerful Saitama is, but it's not as if the hero forced him to shut down his operation or anything. Saitama also doesn't really have an issue with monsters as long as they're non-violent. He has a pet disaster level dragon for a dog. I'd understand if Dr. Genos was somehow stalking Keith Baldi and looking into the hero's history as much as he could. He may have quit his research, but his goal might still be intact. He was giving major supervillain vibes before, but now he's pretty chill. I think it's safe to say that he has successfully changed himself. Instead of destroying humanity to replace them with his creations, he might just want to be helpful and make people stronger. I mean, he was recognized to be a major help to society before he took things too far. Zombie Man's request for help could be exactly what he needs to progress even further. And ideally, with such a genuine hero like Zombie Man, this sort of research will lean towards the betterment of humanity. Whatever the case, removing Zombie Man's limiter will not be an easy task. Saitama experienced that weird pain we talked about, and Garou's limiter only began to break while he was fighting Super Alloy Darkshine. Back then, Garou refused to stay down, even after his entire ribcage had been broken. Garou, of course, got much stronger later on, but his limiter was never mentioned again after this. And with limiters being such a big deal, it's hard for me to say that the lack of a follow-up was a mistake. So if Garou, the closest fighter we have ever seen to Saitama's strength, had only just started to break his limiter, imagine how long it will take Zombie Man. With that being said, Dr. Genos isn't the only scientific mind that knows about limiters. Psychos, the former leader of the Monster Association, also seems to be pretty knowledgeable about them. In fact, breaking a creature's limiter appears to be the major focus of her experiments. Apparently, she's done everything she could think of to do so. Blood and cell transfusion, selective breeding, monster cannibalism, inducing different types of pain and stress, and increasing a subject's anger and hatred levels. And after all that, she discovered that explosive growth and a whole new level of power may be found if a creature manages to conquer death. And being pushed to the brink of death repeatedly is enough to get the job done. The problem is that most things end up dying in the process. And even if they don't, they might just lose their sanity from all the close calls. The only creature Psychos managed to really do this with was Monster King Orochi. Phoenix Man was also able to survive the brink of death and experienced an exponential jump in power too. Zombie Man's survivability is pretty broken, so it might just sound like he's perfectly suited for this process. But I'm not so sure. Against Vampire Pureblood, Zombie Man suffered around 200 lethal wounds. Imagine how long it would take him to make any progress towards that limiter if that didn't do anything. They will probably need to kick things up a notch and also make it feel like he is really going to die instead of relying on his super healing factor. If nothing else, doing this successfully would all but guarantee an improvement to Zombie Man's strength. It might even force his healing to become stronger too. Imagine if he healed faster than any damage could show on his body at all. But honestly, this is still nothing compared to breaking a person's limiter. The power boost is huge, but it's still just a start. There would probably have to be a phase beyond this, what I would like to call the hair loss phase. Again, Saitama is the only character in the entire series that has been fully confirmed to have broken his limiter. When Zombie Man asked Dr. Genos what the price of Saitama's strength was, the mad scientist told him two things. Firstly, at a glance, it was all too clear to Dr. Genos how empty Saitama felt about his otherworldly strength. With how hyped up Carnage Kabuto was, there seemed to be a faint glimmer of hope for Saitama that he'd actually face a real challenge, but that turned out to be false. But thankfully, with Saitama being around, if a limit-broken Zombie Man ever wanted a challenge, he would be able to find one. But then again, unlike Garou, his goal is not to be the one and only strongest. He just wants to be stronger so he can do his job better. So this first point might not matter much. The second point, however, may have impacted Saitama even more than the first. He's bald. He lost all his hair in exchange for his awesome power. Zombie Man may not be the type to care, but hey, at least it can be an indicator of success or failure to break his limiter. It's kind of like a messed up Super Saiyan transformation, where instead of your hair growing or changing color, it just completely falls out. This whole process could take Zombie Man ages depending on how they decide to go about it. Based on his last message to Wild Emperor, it seems like he is expecting to be gone for a while. In theory, Zombie Man could end up being the new Garou of our story. After the Monster Association arc, the story has returned to focusing on Saitama more, but it's unclear how long this might last. And speaking of Garou, unlike the Hero Hunter, Zombie Man wouldn't need to become a monster because technically he already is one. But considering Psychos' research, although we may not have to worry about the hero dying prematurely thanks to the ordeal, there's still the matter of his sanity and reasoning. Whatever he's put through could end up warping his mind and make him more monstrous than usual. There were times when Garou completely lost himself and was totally unaware of his actions. The same thing could end up happening to Zombie Man, and besides Saitama, I can think of 2 other characters that would be pretty crazy for him to encounter during that sort of thing. He really cares about Wild Emperor, so them having to fight would be pretty painful. There's also God, the mysterious entity he is expecting he will need this strength to go up against. God is a total opportunist and is probably aware of Zombie Man's existence since he killed Homeless Emperor when the hero grabbed him. The creature might just offer him some power too. Things are changing pretty rapidly in the world of One Punch Man. We have been getting new characters introduced to the story pretty consistently for a while now, so really anything can happen. But despite all these new additions, I also think it's cool how we have been revisiting some of the earliest moments of the story. Around the same time as all this Dr. Genos stuff, we also received a follow-up to Saitama vs Genos that put a lot of things to rest. If you somehow missed it, go ahead and check out our video on all of that right here.